You guys here? How many of you guys are excited for some Kevin Smith tonight? That's great. I'm a big fan. Obviously, I've been getting to know Kevin for several years now, getting to do this with him. And he's as kind and gracious and fun and interesting as you all would imagine him. And he puts himself out there. He answers questions honestly, and that's a rare thing, to make yourself vulnerable in front of so many people. But it's what makes Kevin special, and it's what makes this panel so special, is that you actually get to see the real person inside. So before I bring him out, which is in just a minute, let's give him one more big loud cheer and welcome Kevin Smith to the stage.
Kevin Smith, man! Happy Comic-Con. Is everyone having a great con so far? Who was here for the Marvel panel? They totally ruined my panel because I too had an army of Dr. Dooms to bring out. Fucking now it looks like they stole my thunder. That was astounding. That was honestly like one of those moments that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And I don't mean that facetiously, man. Like, I love this shit, like everybody in this room. There's a reason we pay so much money and dodge traffic and stand in long lines and shit like that during this celebration of the popular arts, because it's deep in our fucking hearts. It's not just something we watch and consume like content. As I was sitting there watching the Russo brothers reel, like, I was remembering amazing memories over the course of the last 10 years that still fucking give me thrills, man. So when they brought out an army of Dr. Dooms, I was like, oh, this fucking rocks. And then when they were like, the name of the Avengers movie is Doomsday, I was like, oh my God, this fucking rocks. And I'm starting to get turgid at that point, man. Just like, not all the way, but just it's starting to move. Then they revealed who's playing fucking Dr. Doom, and it's Robert Downey Jr. And I got so moist, it was nuts. Oh my God, man, he was like right there when I was backstage, because honestly, the only reason I do the Hall H Q&A anymore is so I could go to the Marvel panel before it. You know, nobody, y'all know my story. I've been doing this shit like, this is my 29th year at Comic-Con. Thank you. I cannot imagine there's anything anybody still doesn't know about me at this point and stuff. So the Q&As I do just as a means to get here, man. Like, seeing Robert Downey Jr. was nuts. Like, I've been in the business 30 years and I could still get starstruck, man. And like, he was just backstage. It reminded me of not too long ago. I didn't do Hall H last year because I had just gotten out of the Looney Bin. I went crazy a year and a half ago and shit. And so I went away to this wonderful facility called Sierra Tucson. Lost my marbles. They helped me find them again and stuff. So, thank you. Yeah, for that next one, they were wonderful. But while I was there, man, I was there for like a month and shit. And in the beginning, like, it's like going to a new school, which is something I never did in my entire life. And getting used to being in a new place and new surroundings, different people and shit. People take you under their wing. So after like 3-4 weeks there, man, like, I became one of those people who would welcome other people and be like, hey, let me show you around and shit. So we were in the cafeteria for breakfast, and there's a view of the mountains in Tucson. It's just stunning and shit. You look at them and go like, what the fuck happened to me and shit? And I guess that's healing and stuff. So I was generally we eat in that room, and I sit at the window with people I've met, and we look out and stuff like that, and kind of try to stay in the moment. That was the thing they taught me, a useful piece of advice for anybody out there. The past is depression. That's because we sit there and look back at the past and relitigate it and go, why did this happen? Why didn't I do this? Why did this person say this to me? So it tends to make us depressed. The future is anxiety, because nobody knows what the future is, but we spend so much time fretting about the future that we waste the present. Like, most of us, most human beings don't spend much time in the present. We're so busy fucking thinking about what went wrong, and we're so busy thinking about what might happen. But the best place in the world to be, the only place you can control, is this moment. You can't control the past. It happened. It's done. Let it go. You cannot control the future. Nobody knows what's gonna fucking happen except Kevin Feige, and he left. So in a world where like you don't know the future and you don't want to go in the past, stay in the present. That's what they taught me, honestly. It was a very expensive lesson to learn, so you're learning it fucking cheap. The past is depression, the future is anxiety, the present is now being mindful, being here in the moment. And what's better than that? We miss so much of what's going on because we're thinking about the next thing, particularly at Comic-Con. So over the course of a month, man, I became the person at the place who welcomed new people when they came in. Be like, hey, let me show you the ropes. So I went into the cafeteria for breakfast one morning and I saw a dude sitting at the back table by himself, and he was new to the facility and whatnot. And so just as somebody had taken me under their wing at one point, I was like, you know, I told my friends, I said, I'll see you in a bit, I'm gonna help this cat out, he seems to be alone. So I sat next to him and said, hey man, I said, what are you in for? I lost my mind, what are you here for? And that was a little too much for him and shit. But he shared what he was there for and whatnot, and then we just started talking. I started telling him the lay of the land. I was like, this place is fucking great. They say there, you know, before you leave here, you'll find a miracle, and I'm telling you, these cats saved my life. Like, you're gonna be in good hands with these cats. And I was telling them the lay of the land, telling them when to eat, and like if you don't find something on the menu and shit, like when they do the cafeteria, you could ask for like a veggie burger. He's like, why the fuck would I ever do that? And I was like, well, I have to because I'm a vegan. Used to be happy, now I'm fucking vegan. So I was showing him the ropes and whatnot. We were talking the whole lunch, about half hour, 45 minutes, and then I had to go to like a group session and shit. So I was talking to him about leaving, and I was like, you got this, I'll see you at lunch and I'll see how you're doing and shit like that. And so before I'm getting ready to leave, he says something to me. He goes, you know what, man, I gotta tell you, this whole time you've been talking to me, you sound familiar to me, man. Like, you remind me of somebody from the movies. And I was like, I'm getting ready to be like, well, I do play Silent Bob in the pictures and shit. But before I could answer, he goes, Robert Downey Jr. Having just seen him backstage, this guy was way fucking off, man. Like, it was nuts. I really wanted to like go grab him and hug him. Like, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, but like, you know, I know he's gonna play Doctor Doom, but fucking Tony Stark, he gave his life to save the world. It's like seeing Jesus at Comic-Con. So it's kind of moving for me. Okay, man. So let's talk about, before I go further, can I just, sometimes when I get discombobulated, I like to tell a story, put me right back in the fucking moment and shit like that. I'm gonna share a quick story. It has nothing to do with Comic-Con, but it has something to do with my house and shit. Years ago, I went to visit Ben Affleck at his house in the Hollywood Hills. We were making Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and he was like, hey man, why don't you come, we're having a barbecue, come see my house. So I went to his house, and I didn't know it was a house because it looked like this giant like French hotel or some such shit. And I was like, oh, he must have one of the biggest apartments. And then he opened the door, and it was all his fucking house and shit. And I was like, my God, Armageddon did well. So the house was, one of the first things I noticed about the house was this giant green door. It's about 3 people tall, very ostentatious and shit. And he was like, what do you think of that place? I was like, the door's a little ostentatious. He goes, my mom's an English teacher, so I know what that fucking means. So he showed me around the place. He had like a bunch of friends from back in Boston living with him and stuff. Like at one point he showed me a closet in an office, and the closet was big, but there was a mattress on the floor in it. He goes, this is where my friend Soren sleeps and shit. I was like, he don't warrant a bedroom? He goes, look at this fucking closet. It's as big as a bedroom and shit. So as he's showing us around the house, me and my wife is like really taken with the place and whatnot. And Ben starts talking about how he don't want to live there no more because it's too close to the street. People can take pictures and shit like that. Paparazzi just sit outside and fire at whoever comes out. So he's like, I gotta go get a house with a driveway. He's like, I'm gonna buy Drew Barrymore's house. She has a fucking driveway. I was like, must be all that ET money and shit. So he got a phone call. He goes, wait here 1 second, I'm gonna go. So it's just me and Jen, my wife, sitting in the foyer of this gorgeous fucking house. And Jennifer turns to me and she goes, I want this fucking house. And I was like, well then you married the wrong guy from Mallrats, because the fashionable male seems to be doing quite fucking well in this place. So Ben came back, he said, what are you talking about? I was like, my old lady wants your house. And he goes, oh fucking take it off my hands. I was like, I can't fucking afford this house, you're out of your mind and shit. And so he was like, what if I rented you the house? Because he knew I was going to be coming out to California for 6 months to work on a script. He goes, I can rent you the house. You're going to go rent a different house. I'll rent you this house and stuff. And he's like, stay here for as long as you can. And then when you can pay for the house, I'll take whatever you gave me in rent off the top of the purchase price, which was a really fucking sweet deal. But I did put him in Chasing Amy so far. So, you know, I eventually we moved into the house, rented it for a year. After the year, the house became ours. So we've been living in that house for 22 years. And yet, even though Ben lived in it for less than 6 months, we still refer to it as Ben Affleck's house. As does the tour people that come through the neighborhood all the time. So every day I'll be in my office and fucking like, I'll start hearing somebody tell distantly the story of my life, a little piece of the story of my life, where they're like, oh, Ben Affleck, oh, J-Lo, oh, Kevin Smith, and I'm like, oh, that's me. And I'll go out on my balcony and shit, and there's a bus with an open fucking roof, and a bunch of people are like, holy shit, it's fucking Kevin James, and they start taking pictures. So I've been living in a house for 22 years, and it has this ridiculous fucking door, and we can't change it. It's not like you can put a better door there. It's just, it looks like something out of Lewis Carroll and stuff. It's just so fucking huge. So, problem with the door is no fucking people whatsoever, man. Like, the door's thick as a fucking dick. Not mine, somebody else's fucking dick. But there's no people, and so you can't see, for 22 years, you can't see who's outside your door when they knock or ring the bell. So it's a real, like, every time I open the door, I'm always like got one foot against it going, I hope it's not a home invasion, you know, and open the door and then find out who it is and shit. So I was sitting in my office, this happened about 4 months ago. I was sitting in my office and I heard the knock on the door and shit. So I go down the hallway from my office and open the door. When I open the door, I see 2 Los Angeles Police Department officers. Now, you know, in my world, I'm going to be 54 next week. In my world, growing up, the cops always looked like adults. But these cops looked to be about 25 years old. And I was the adult. And you know, I've spent most of my life being afraid of the cops, but that was the first time I was like, I could chase the cops now. So I was like, how are you? And I was instantly trying to think of what I fucking did and shit. Like, what would bring them there? And they were like, hey, we have a little thing in the neighborhood. Somebody had an elderly woman in the car with them. They went in to make a delivery. The woman got out of the car. She's senile at this point, so she just wandered. We don't know where she is, which direction she went. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. He goes, well, I see that your house has a camera on it. And I said, yeah, man, we just got cameras from ADT. They said they're the fucking best system in the world. He goes, well, that's good, because we're hoping to look at your footage to see if the woman walked uphill or downhill and see if she passed by. And I was like, oh shit, this is fucking perfect. I was like, you know that show, The Closer? And they're like, yeah. I was like, I've just been rewatching that, so I know exactly what you fucking need right now, man. And so they're like, all right. I was like, I got my phone. I pulled out my phone. I was like, they put the security camera like right on my phone so I can just pull it up, scrub through it back. How long ago? He's like, it's about an hour ago. I said, fantastic. I'm gonna pull it up. I pull it up and I scrub through it and it starts thinking and keeps fucking thinking and thinks for like 5 minutes and shit. And they're starting to get funny where they're like, yeah, I guess you did buy the best system. It's like, I know, it's so weird. Maybe it's because we're outside. I was like, sorry, man, it's a pain in the ass. Then the second cop said to the first cop, he goes, should I pull the car off to the side? Because they had the fucking lights lit and all that shit. He goes, maybe I should pull the car off to the side because there's traffic in front. I said, yeah, you can pull it right in front of the garage. And there's a spot right there. You park the car right there. And then the second cop looks at me and he goes, holy fuck, are you Kevin Smith? And I was so impressed that anyone 25 knew who the fuck I was, man. Let alone the fucking law and shit. And then the first cop turns on him instantly and goes, fucking of course it's Kevin Smith. I knew that when we opened the door. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are adorable. You're making me feel so famous. Like, bro, my brother forced me to watch Mallrats my whole young life. I know exactly who you are and shit. And I was like, oh man, that's fucking awesome. I said, well, I'll tell you what, obviously I can't get a work in here. I said, but if we go to my office, I'm plugged in on the landline. So why don't you come inside? Can you guys come inside? They're like, yeah, totally. We'll come in Silent Bob's house. You know? I was like, absolutely and shit. So I bring them inside and I'm heading down to my office with them and they are gacked up, man. They're like in the full fucking gear. They look like they're on a TV show with the vests and shit, including a camera on their chest. And that was the first time I noticed that there was like a camera involved in this whole thing. And I swear to God, I've been in the entertainment business 30 years, so when I saw the camera on the cop's chest, the first thing I did, I sucked in my gut. I started like sucking and going, it's this way, guys, and trying to seem more buff than I fucking was and shit. Because I watched these videos on YouTube. I was like, I may wind up like one of those videos and shit. So I bring them into my office and whatnot, and I open up my laptop and I plug in the landline and shit, and I pull up the the video and whatnot, and start scrolling and shit. And we're looking for it, and it's thinking again. And he's like, he's having the same problem. I was like, I know, man, fuck ADT. Like, Jesus, they told me I had the top shelf and stuff. And he goes, well, the signal's been down in the area and stuff like that. I said, yeah, man, I appreciate you guys being patient and shit. And I was like, you know, do you want anything? Because I got tons of souvenirs and shit like that. I was like, I got so much weed. They're like, thank you, we can't take that. I was like, I gave it up, so I got piles of it, man. He was like, good to know, not today. So as we're sitting there, like they're wearing their fucking gear, and they got this thing, little like walkie-talkie and shit, sitting right there. So as we're bullshitting, as I'm looking for the footage and whatnot, all of a sudden this thing on his shoulder goes, and then the guy goes, you know, and then I'm fucking, this catches my attention, man. And so I look up, and the first cop don't look at me, he looks at the second cop, and he goes, there's been a shooting in Hollywood. Now, I live 2 blocks above fucking Hollywood Boulevard, so that's like literally my fucking neighborhood. I live in Hollywood and shit. So when I heard shooting in Hollywood, I was like, you're kidding, there's a shooting that close and shit? And then out of fucking nowhere, from the fucking thing, right, all of a sudden I hear, and I was like, Jesus Christ, did somebody just get shot? And the guy goes, no, my bad, that's my ringtone. And he pulls his phone out. And I was like, don't you think that's an irresponsible ringtone? And he goes, it's from Lethal Weapon. As this, that justified it. Long story short, they found the lady, so it all fucking worked out. All right. Now I'm reset and ready to go. Kids, coming here always means the most to me. Somebody asked me in an interview today, like, why do you like doing it? And I was like, it's Hall H is the beginning of my business year. The beginning of my new year really starts here on this stage, and then all the adventures that I hope to go on unfold from here on out. And so coming here, it kind of feels like, okay, go. Like it begins again. And it feels like just 1 year ago, a little less, I guess it was a year and a week ago, that I was here, but I didn't do Hall H. Like I missed it last year. I mean, last year would have been the best year to do it, because that was the strike year and no fucking famous people were here. I was the most famous motherfucker in comedy. Like when I walked backstage, I saw fucking like Pedro, and I saw fucking like, I saw all the Fantastic Four. I was like, I'm the least famous fucking person here. But last year, man, I would have been it on a fucking stick. So it's nice to be here. Nice to follow Marvel, although always very difficult, because Marvel comes into Hall H and fucks the shit out of it. And then I'm like a hot dog in a hallway afterwards. Like people are like, is it in yet? I'm like, I don't know, I'm trying my best. You know, they put up footage after footage, like all the shit backstage is pretty astounding and whatnot. So I, too, come with a little bit of footage, man. And when I say I come with a little bit of footage, it's exactly as filthy as I fucking meant it. Last year when I was here, we left Comic-Con, went back east, and shot a movie in a movie theater that I have with my friends. There's a movie theater that we grew up going to, one town over from my hometown, the Highlands, Atlantic Highlands. Movie theater is called the Atlantic Cinemas and stuff. My whole childhood, that was my movie theater. My father would take me to see movies there. My father took me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark there. And I saw him like light up, like I'd never seen him light up before. You know, I had a 70s dad, just kind of stern authority figure. He wasn't abusive or anything like that, but we weren't buddies and shit like that. We weren't like friends. Back then, like parents weren't friends with their kids. I raised my kid as a friend more so than like my daughter. Case in point, like I was going through a particularly like kind of horrible sense of self-doubt about me as a parent when she hit like her 21st birthday and shit. So I was like, oh my God, it just went by like that. Like I remember when, you know, Jennifer was just like, I'm pregnant. I was like, what the fuck? And then 21 years later, like she's an adult and she's kind of like off on her own and stuff. And so I'd asked her, like, you know, when I was feeling kind of insecure, I was like, kiddo, like, was I a good dad? And she goes, well, I never really thought of you as my dad so much as I thought of you as like my fun older brother who had a lot of money. And I was like, I don't bump into that at all, man. Like, that's the vibe I was going for, man. I didn't know how to raise a child, but I knew how to be friends with somebody and stuff. My dad and my mom, like, that entire generation, they didn't really think like that. You know, they did on the Brady Bunch, but in real life, in practicality, parents and their kids weren't necessarily friends. And I didn't know my father beyond like, oh, that's my dad. He sets the tone. He's the one that tells you to go to bed. He's the one that, you know, goes out and works and shit like that. All the stereotypes. I didn't know him beyond that until he took me to that same movie theater to see Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was a kid, man. He'd taken me out of school. My mom told me, she's like, your dad's gonna come pick you up and a half day from school, take you to see a movie. I said, why? We go to the movies on Saturday. And she's like, because he's gonna start taking you to the movies every week. It was something that like me and my dad shared. And I always imagined it came from a conversation with my mom where she was like, you're missing these kids growing up, because my dad worked at nights at the post office. And she was like, you're missing these kids, you're missing their entire childhood. You've got to spend more time with them before it's gone. And my father was like, well, the fat one likes movies. I can take him to the movies. So, you know, my mom's like, he's going to take you to the movies. And my dad, you know, I said to my mom, I was like, what do I tell Sister Ann Louise, man, about like fucking, it's a half day. I'm not supposed to be leaving school. And she goes, if they ask you at school, because I went to a Catholic school, they were like, just tell them that your aunt died last night. Because that's the kind of Catholic family we were. We were encouraged to lie to the clergy. So, you know, I went to school, and then at like 11:45, I got called down to the main office, and Sister Gloria Louise is like, Kevin, your father's here to pick you up. He's going to take you to your family's house. Your aunt passed away. I'm so sorry. I was like, oh yeah, it was all rather sudden. Like, we can't believe it. And she's like, well, your dad's out there. We'll pray for your aunt. And I was like, don't bother. And then I met my dad in the car. I was like, where are we going? He's going, we're going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so, you know, I was familiar with the movie because it's like, oh, Han Solo's in it and shit. My father was familiar with it for a completely different reason. He'd read a review and it captured his imagination, and I saw that come to life when he took me to the theater. My dad didn't really talk to me, talked at me, as a father did kind of back then, as most parents did. He didn't get deep into my psyche and stuff like that. You know, he was just trying to keep us alive, me and my brother and sister and shit. Never mind, like, find out where our happy centers were. Did we feel fulfilled? Shit like that. What were our dreams? So I'm sitting next to this guy who is my father, but technically a veritable stranger, in as much as I don't know the real him. But watching Raiders of the Lost Ark in that movie theater, sitting next to my father, I discovered the guy at the root of my father. I discovered Don Smith, like the dude my dad was before, like, fucking he knocked up my mom and stuff like that. The guy who was just a fan of things, because as the movie was playing, my father, who never talked during movies, would not stop talking. 2 minutes into the movie, it fired him up, and he was turning to me and just talking a fucking Blue Streak. He was like, oh my God, this is a cliffhanger. This is exactly like the cliffhangers that I used to go to with your Aunt Barbara when I was a kid. We'd pay 50 cents and we'd go see a movie, and then we didn't get an ending. We had to go back the next week, and then we'd see the ending. Then they're doing cliffhangers again. This is fantastic. You having a good time? I'm having a great fucking time. It was like he had done a line of coke off my mom's ass before the movie. But it was just fandom. I recognize it now for what it is. Naked fandom, where he was like, this touches me. This reminds me of something good from my fucking childhood. So that very theater is the same theater that, like, I grew up going to my whole life, and then a few years ago it looked like it was going to be closing because of the pandemic and stuff. But me and a bunch of friends of mine pitched in and bought the place, renamed it Smod Castle Cinemas, and we've been running it for like 2 years now. There's an apartment over the movie theater whenever I'm, thank you. There's an apartment over the movie theater, and whenever I'm there, like, I get to fucking stay there. So, like, I'm a filmmaker who lives above a movie theater. It's like fucking adorable. It's like a cobbler who lives in a giant shoe. So one of the first things I noticed about the theater, man, because I spend a lot of time there and whatnot, like, is you get to eat all the free fucking snacks you want. So, you know, my apartment's right above it. All you smell is popcorn all day. I would just bomb downstairs and pick up popcorn and stuff. And my back door goes behind the concessions counter and then opens up behind the concession stand. And so we got a bunch of kids, high school kids, who work in the place and shit. And periodically I just bomb out of the back, open the door, like, Jesus Christ! And I'm like, hey man, I'm just here for some popcorn, sorry. And I fuck off and go back upstairs. So I did that not too long ago. I was looking for some Twizzlers. I was like, I want some Twizzlers. Went downstairs, opened the door. Kid working there was like, holy shit. I was like, hey man, sorry, I just came for some Twizzlers. I live upstairs. And the kid goes, oh, I know about you. I heard about you. And I was like, what do you mean? What'd you hear about me? He's like, everyone on staff talks about you. They say that sometimes you just appear out of the walls and then disappear like Homer Simpson into the bush. was like, oh, right on, man, that's cool. He goes, they got a name for you, a nickname. I was like, get out of here, what do they call me? He goes, they call you the Phantom. So, hanging around the movie theater, this is a movie theater that it's been a movie theater for over 100 years. It's been a cinema. It started as a single screen. In my childhood, it went to 2 screens, then it went to 3, 4, and there's 5 different cinemas under one roof. Biggest theater is like 230 seaters, smallest one's like a 90 seater. Thing about it is this fucker was built so long ago. So when I sit in the movie theater now, I'm sitting in the same seats that I sat in when I went to see Friday the 13th Part 2 when I was a fucking kid. Nothing has changed about the place. So me and the folks who bought it, I bought it with my friends, we were talking about doing refurbishments, and that's when I was like, oh no. Like, if we own a movie theater, now we own a free set. And if we own a set, we're duty bound to shoot a movie here and stuff. So I wrote a movie about the stuff I used to do when I was a kid in the 80s going to the movies. Some people thought that it would be kind of like Clerks in a movie theater, but I never worked in a movie theater, so I wouldn't even know how to go about that. What I did at movie theaters my whole life, and what I continue to do, is you know, take it in, take the journey. Have them tell me one more time the lie that tells the truth. Try to understand the world through a prism that makes more sense to me. So the idea of making a movie about people who work in a movie theater, that's for somebody better than me who's gone through that experience. I just wanted to make a movie about being a fan, particularly back then. Since the movie theater looks so fucking old, as long as we never pointed a camera outside into the real world where it looked like 2023, as long as we point the camera inside the theater, it looked 1980s. It's still, and really it was like kind of refurbishments from like 1960s. So the whole thing looked period. So I was like, oh my God, I could shoot a period movie without having to spend a lot of money. Like, all I have to do is not fix anything. So that's what we did. We didn't fix anything, and we shot a movie that I wrote and directed that's based on a magical summer when I was a kid in 1986. The movie takes place on May 25th, 1986. And it's about a kid who goes on a date and at the same time tries to hang out with his friends at the movie theater the way I used to, pay for one movie and then jump from movie to movie to movie. Yeah! So it's a movie about movie hopping, and it's a movie about kids who watch movies. So at one point we're watching kids watch a fucking movie and shit. But most of all, it's a movie about how profoundly movies affect us, and I can't think of a better fucking place to debut the trailer for my brand new movie, The 4:30 Movie. You want to see it, kids? Thanks to the good folks at Saban Films, the ones who helped us make Jay and Silent Bob reboot, man. Last summer, we shot this flick, and what can I tell you about it before the trailer does? You know what, I'll let the trailer speak for itself, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Without further ado, I ain't like Marvel, where I'm like, shut your fucking cameras off. Shoot this all you want, kids. Shoot it and share it with everybody you fucking know. Poop monster, I was like, that fucking happened. So I tend to go back to the 90s, and you know, that's where I started with Clerks, and then most of my stuff kind of goes right back to that point. So this is a very tender 5-year period of my life right before Clerks happened. This time around, we go back a little deeper, and it's kind of like a secret origin story of yours truly. Austin Zajur isn't playing me, so to speak, but he's playing a character named Brian David, which was the original name my parents wanted to give me. And then someone else had a Brian David on the same day in the nursery, and so my mom was like, well, we can't name our kid that. What if they mix the babies up and shit like that? And I'm not sure that didn't happen. But my mom right then and there was just like, you know what, we're gonna name him something else. And they went away, you know, generally all the names in my family came from other family members. But for some reason, she went with Kevin Patrick with me. My grandmother was so funny. I was like, who the fuck is Kevin Patrick, the mailman? And my mom was like, well, I do fuck a mailman, so yes. Because my father worked at the post office. So this movie kind of goes back to that time. Like, Jason Lee plays a version of my dad, which was kind of fun to shoot. Rachel Dratch plays a version of my mom. Nick Cirola plays a version of my friend Ernie O'Donnell. Reed plays a version of my friend Michael Bellicose, Belly. And Sienna Agudan plays a version of my high school girlfriend, Kim Lana. So it's a really sweet fucking movie. And I went out of my way to make it a PG-13, because when we were kids, nobody cursed. We weren't allowed to curse. Like, I would have been crucified if I used the term motherfucker when I was a kid. That came after I met Jason Mewes. So it felt like inauthentic to have them all cursing and whatnot. So going into it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make it a PG-13, man. Like, why not? Because there's nothing really to go for hard R content. And so I shot what I felt was a PG-13 movie, but then they misplead their case. You get like 5 minutes to rebut, they get 5 minutes to rebut, and then you get to make a closing statement, they get to make a closing statement, and that's it. The they is the NPA, the ratings board. The me would be me representing the film. The audience during the arbitration process are members of a group called NATO, which sounds really fucking important, but it's not. It's the National Association of Theater Owners, which I am now a part of because I own a movie theater with my friends and shit. So NATO, they're the judges because they're the last line of defense, because they're the exhibitors, they're the ones that actually show the movies. They know what gets an audience member off their feet complaining and stuff like that. So historically, for years, I had to listen to that and be like, all right, well, I understand, that would make sense. But now I own a movie theater, so I felt like I was good to go, because I was like, oh, I'll tell you what gets people off their feet. Nothing. Like, fucking nobody cares about cursing anymore, because we have the internet and they could watch people fuck a horse if they want to. Like, what are you protecting them for? So I went in and pled my case where I was like, kids, like, I know how to make an R-rated movie, and I really wasn't trying this time. I was trying not to make an R-rated movie. And nobody uses the F word a single time, let alone any kind of combination of the F word and whatnot. And if you make this movie R-rated, then you're saying essentially this movie is tantamount to The Human Centipede, another R-rated movie. And I was damn sure we don't have any fucking luscious ass eating in our movie, so, and I felt like pretty strong about it. And they were like, you know what? When they spoke, they were like, honestly, Kevin, we were really on the fence about whether to go for an R or PG-13. But like, there's just so much conversation about masturbation in this movie. And I was like, no, there's not. And they listed 16 fucking examples of people talking about jerking off and coming. And I was like, why did I think this was PG-13? So when you see the flick, it's going to be like, you might be waiting a long time for somebody to say something remotely controversial. There's nothing in there. There's nothing remotely edgy. It's about as edgy as a spoon. But it's warm and fucking wonderful, man. And it represents my soft little heart at that particular time in my life. All the movies are a snapshot of where I was when shit was going on in my life and whatnot. And so this movie, I think, is a perfect representation of where I was when we made it, when I got out of the fucking nut house. Now, that's coming September 13th. You're going to be able to see it. People have asked, are you touring it? I'm not going to tour it, but we are going to have a bunch of screenings of the movie at Smod Castle Cinemas, including like the world premiere we're going to do there. And the tickets for that are going to go on sale on Monday when the trailer goes online and stuff. But I'm not going to tour it around the country because Simon is goodly enough, like, we're just going to put it out in the theaters like normal people. And I was like, fuck, that's awesome. So you may be able to watch it in a theater near you. And I can't wait for you to see it, man. It's awfully sweet. If you grew up in the 80s, it's a real time tunnel and shit like that. No Stranger Things happens, but it's very much in the 80s with bikes and shit like that. So that's coming September 13th. And then this fall, after that, I wish I'd come prepared like the Marvel folks. Like, the Marvel folks had this whole fucking trailer just to introduce the Russo brothers. Like, it was amazing. And it's like all the shots from their movies, and then the title was like, the Russos are back and shit. And I was like, wow, they have so much more money than me. Not just the Russos, Disney in general. And so I didn't prepare like a fucking clip for like what's coming, but I am happy to stand here and tell you that this fall, I'm gonna make my 17th movie. The 4:30 movie is my 16th film. I want to get to 20 before I drop dead, man. But 20, like, I'm not going for quantity, I'm going for quality. Yoga hosers be damned. So, 16th movie is coming out. The 17th movie we start shooting in the fall, and it's a Jay and Silent Bob movie. Somebody's like, why do you keep fucking doing this? And I'm like, that's why, man. Like, somewhere, somebody's always happy to see it. And so I've talked about it a bunch, but I haven't said the title yet. So I figured, like, in the spirit of Marvel letting us know that it's Avengers Doomsday. My title was also Avengers Doomsday. So I had to quick switch it out. And so the title of my forthcoming flick, the one that we're going to shoot in the fall that won't be out until next year, hopefully I'll be here next year on the stage at Comic-Con showing you a trailer for a movie called Jay and Silent Bob Store Wars. Just beating that fucking Star Wars joke to the death, kids. It's about Jay and Silent Bob running a dispensary, and they get into competition with another dispensary. So it's essentially like a live-action Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner movie, where shit just ups and ups and ups. It's kind of funny, so I can't wait to show you some stuff next year. Okay, we've been at this for a little while now. Let's open it up to you folks. That's why you come for the Q&A and whatnot. So let's find out what you want to talk about. There's a microphone over there. So I wouldn't recommend a ton of folks line up because I tend to get very long fucking answers and shit. I love the sound of my own voice. It's called Q&A. It's a little bit of Q. It's a metric fuck ton of that. So we're going to begin with you. What's your name, Captain?
Hi, my name is Sarah Hall.
Hold on, one more.
Sarah?
Everyone give it up for Sarah. Sarah's first. Sarah, let me tell you, today I moderated the Simpsons panel in the morning at 12 o'clock, and Matt Groening was on the panel, and every time somebody asked a question, he had this gigantic pad that he had drawn all the Simpsons characters in, and he tore off the sheet, and he gave it to whoever asked a question with like some gigantic, expensive fucking Simpsons toys. It was so impressive. We won't be doing that. So the reward here is just like you asking and shit. But I wish I could make it better for you. So after the place, find me. I have some weed for you. Anyway, over to you. Right into the microphone so I can hear them.
Thanks for the offer, but I'm flying back to Texas.
Oh, well, here's the good news. Flying out of California, they don't give a fuck, man. Like, take all the weed you want. We got plenty.
Okay.
And the way I understand it, they don't check you when you land in Texas. You just don't want to fly from Texas with weed.
Okay.
I mean, technically, kids, you never want to fly with weed together. But you can fly from California. We don't give a shit.
Good to know.
I try to help, man. The A's are here for the Q's.
So, 4 months ago,
Okay.
my husband and I opened a comic book store.
All right, so number one, absolutely fucking tremendous. That's noble work right there, man. We need more comic book stores. We lost so many during COVID. But I'll be honest with you, man. For my whole career, I've always been waiting for somebody to get up to the mic and be like, my husband and I would like to fuck in front of you. So, when you said my husband and I was like, this is it. And I was about to be like, good night, everybody. But I'm sure this will be just as interesting, though.
Sorry, my daughter's in the 6th grade.
I went to a nut house. I know a great trauma therapist. I'll give you a number and some weed.
She's flying to Amsterdam in about a week and a half, so.
Don't bring weed there, they have plenty.
Question. Oh!
You've opened a store. What's the store called? First off, here, my first lesson in business, tell people the name of the store.
The name of the store is D20 Comics and Games.
D20 Comics and Games located?
Hollyville, Texas.
Hollyville, Texas.
Yes.
Right on. And what is that? What's that here for those of us that aren't familiar?
Fort Worth area.
Right on, right on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I wanted to ask you, I know opening a comic book store for us is a lot different experience than you buying a comic book store and taking it over and making it your own.
Way to put me in the 1%, man. I'm trying to relate to these people. I'm like, oh, we couldn't all buy a comic book store. No, you're absolutely absolutely right. To be fair though, I did mine back in, let me see, what was the year? 1995, 96? That's what, yeah, 96, because 97 we officially took over. The guy who ran the place, it was called Comicology. If you ever see the cut opening sequence from Chasing Amy, we shot a sequence in that comic book store. When the dude, I went in one day, I always got my comics there and stuff, he gave me a pretty sweet discount, like 40% and stuff. So one day I came in, he goes, me and my wife are moving to Taiwan or Thailand, one of the Thais. And he's like, she's gonna teach English over there. So I'm gonna close the store. And I was like, oh my God, it's a fucking bummer. And he goes, well, I always heard you say that one day you wanted to own a comic book store. So he's going, would you like to take it over? And I was like, oh my God, like I have thought about like one day when I retire, that's how I would retire, behind the counter of a comic book store. I said, I hadn't thought about doing it so soon, but like, you know, I honestly, I don't know that I can afford that kind of thing. And he goes, well, what I'm looking for all the contents of the store and the client list and stuff like that, you'd have to pay rent in the building, is 60 grand. And this was 1997, so I was like, I go, 60 grand, man, because I was just saying it out loud, right, as I was processing. And before I could say a fucking word, he goes, okay, 30 grand. So like, he outbid himself. And so I was like, I mean, done and done. Like, you know, I had spent $27,000, $27,575 making Clerks. For an additional like $24.25, I could maintain a second dream, like make a second dream come true, not just for me, but for my good friend Walter Flanagan. See, he told me at one point, like a long time ago, we were talking, I said we were comic book shopping and shit. Went to a bunch of shows in New York and New Jersey one weekend. And as we were driving back, I was like, fucking comics are awesome. Even sometimes just filled with the spirit. Like, fucking comics are awesome. It'd be so awesome to work to own a comic book store. And Walter goes, oh, not me. I would never want to own a comic book store. That's too much responsibility. But I'd love to work in one because I get a sweet fucking discount. So I remember that, and in that moment, I was like, 30 grand, I could make Walter's dream come true and mine at the same time. And like, that's not a bad price for a turnkey fucking business and shit. So I told the dude, like, all right, let's do this. And that was the tail end of 1996 going into 1997. I have never run the business myself. It's been run by Walter for years, Mike Zapsik, my friend Brian Johnson ran it before Walter Flanagan and stuff, and a host of other people they've had work with them over the years, including Jason Mewes. Jason Mewes used to like tend the counter all the time. And this was back in his like substance abuse days and shit. So sometimes I'd come into the comic book store and there'd be like people in the store. There was one time this couple from Rhode Island. They're like, oh my God, we drove all the way from Rhode Island. I was like, Rhode Island, that's fucking far, man. Like, nice to meet you and stuff. I was like, where's Jay? And they were like, oh, he asked us to watch the store. He went to get smokes. You know? So I've been in a brick and mortar comic book store business for 27 years at this point, but although personally I can't take all the credit, most of the cats did the hard work and the heavy lifting. I just paid the bills. But it has been so incredibly rewarding and stuff. So I feel you. What you're doing is far more impactful on your life than what I did was on mine. Because at the end of the day, if it all would have stopped or fallen apart, I would have been like, oh, that sucks. Let me go make a movie or something like that. So I can appreciate, man, that like this is a big fucking move for you. And it is bigger than the move that I made for myself. You've succeeded in making me feel small and petty. Anyway, back to you. Go ahead.
Inspirational. So the question. What about...
I told you, metric fuck ton of A.
That's fine.
Sometimes the Q doesn't even fucking matter.
I'm having a good time, so I'm good.
You and me both.
What about owning and being involved in running a comic book store surprised you the most?
And honestly, in my case, it was shocking, and it still remains shocking to me that we're still doing it, that we're still above ground. Not because the people that run it haven't been good at it, of course, they're the ones that like have kept it open all this time. But my brand of whimsy is so fucking old. This year is the 30th anniversary of Clerks. It came out 30 years ago, which means Jay and Silent Bob are 30 years old as a concept. The guy who plays them is way fucking older. But as a concept as a thing 30 years. So I never imagined they would make it very far. Like, to me, they were always like a Cheech and Chong ripoff and shit. So I never knew they'd have this incredible life of their own. Calling the store Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash was no thought went into longevity. It was like, oh, that's what we're doing in the world right now, let's call it that. And in many ways, it has been the standard bearer when we haven't had things to do. The comic book store is always there. The dream of it was like, hey, let's put things in it, like, you know, showcase props from the movies and costumes, our own version of Planet Hollywood and stuff. So it's been absolutely delightful for nearly 30 years at this point. But probably the most surprising thing to me is that it's still going. Like, you know, we've had lean years, we've had years where we were in the red and stuff. Most of the time we've always been in the black. That we're still doing it at this point is what blows me away. That and the folks who stayed with us since the beginning. We have some reservists who've been with us since we took over the place. You know, and you're deeply entrenched in their lives and vice versa. So that always affects me. Like, seeing people in the store who I've seen dozens of times before, if not 100 times before, because they'll keep coming back. Being a part of the community, you know, because we're in this town of Red Bank, it's really nice, and we're a fixture. Whenever they write about us outside of the world, when they write, you know, articles about the 10 best places in New Jersey and the 50 to stay the fuck away from, we're always in like the top 10 and stuff. So it's incredibly meaningful. But I didn't expect it to go this long. You know, as a person who ran from the world of retail, you know, when I made Clerks and Clerks got picked up, I was like, awesome, I never have to do that again. Then I went and bought a retail store, and I've been in retail like ever since, so I didn't get very far. It's like I remember Bruce Springsteen, I went to see a Bruce Springsteen concert, and he talked about, like, I'm the guy that wrote Born to Run, and then I moved 10 minutes from my house. You know? So similar kind of vibe there. Not similar like, hey, me and Bruce are the same, not at all. But similar kind of thought process. What about you? What has been your most surprising thing?
How many people have embraced the idea of the store? Said, oh, we've needed this here, and been so excited. We partnered with the local library for their summer reading program. And they,
so important. I read an article this morning about how kids don't read anymore.
So we gave them a couple, and they bought a couple gift cards for our store as prizes for their program. And we actually had a daughter and mother come in just this past weekend, and they were just, the mom was floored. The daughter was the one that had the gift card, and then the mom just got sucked into memories of childhood and the pop culture things that she loved, and she was getting excited. That was just wonderful.
And you get to foster that. Like, think about, like, it is so important to provide as much happiness as one can to others in this life, and to yourself. The other thing they taught me in the fucking mental hospital was, like, put your mask on before putting on somebody else's. I've spent my life doing the reverse. I'm a codependent people pleaser, so I'm always trying to help people before I help my fucking self. But one of my favorite things that I've been able to do over the course of my career is put a fucking smile on somebody's face just by having the store exist when they walk in and see pieces of their childhood. When we had the show Comic Book Men for 7 seasons, one of my favorite aspects of that is like meeting people who are like, I watched the show with my kid, and their kid's like 11 years old, and he's like, and all the stuff you show I used to have. Like, that's why the show was made in the first place, man, because just like the feeling I had backstage during this panel, during the Marvel panel. Like, when I came in, I had a busy day, I was doing things, and taking pictures, doing press, signing things, and moderating panels. So by the time I got backstage, you know, I was like, all right, I'm gonna get to kick back. This was my reward. Like, I like going to the Marvel panel and seeing what's gonna happen and shit. But, you know, I approached it as like, oh, I'm gonna learn some new things. I forgot how magical it could fucking be and how it could dial my clock back. So I went from being a 53-year-old, nearly 54-year-old man sitting in the back to like a child again when fucking Dr. Doom took off his mask and it was Robert Downey Jr. That shit makes a motherfucker light. And we need more of that in life. Lightness and stuff. And you provide that. Thank you.
Excellent to see
Give them
you.
your names so we can give it to everybody.
Mike and Nate.
Mine and Nick.
Mike and Nate.
Mike and Nate. Give it up for Mike and Nate. They're next.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you. It's good seeing you again. I see you every year.
Good seeing you too.
Although last year we skipped and shit.
Yeah. Well, you know, you had to correct yourself, and
I
that's
did.
That's fine with me.
I took Hall H off, I'll be honest with you, because Hall H, I love doing Hall H, but there's always this moment when I walk out that I'm like, oh, what if nobody's fucking there and stuff. It's a big ass room, man. Like when I first started in Hall H, it was a 3,000 seater. Now it's 6,500. So I couldn't fill 3,000. So when it's 6,500, every time I walk out here, I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be fucking empty. Probably because I still have traumatic flashbacks of when J.J. Abrams stole the entire fucking audience to go show up the Star Wars conference. So last year, having gotten just fresh out the joint, I was like, you know what, man, I can't do that to myself. I can't like go up on stage and if people aren't there, feel depressed. Like, you know, so much of my value is predicated on what you have to say about me, and that's horrible. I wish I could generate my own sense of self-worth, but since I'm an entertainer, most of how I feel about myself is predicated on how the audience feels about me. So last year I was like, I'm too tender to put myself in that situation. What if I walk out there and there's fucking 5 people and shit? So I was like, I'm gonna allow myself to take the year off. And I remember feeling like, well, what if that's it? You know, because I had a heart attack 6 years ago, almost fucking died. What if that was my last chance? What if I dropped dead between now and then? And honestly, that was the one thing that gave me pause all year long, where I was like, don't die, you have to get back to Hall H one more fucking time. And now, because the Marvel panel, they were like, in 2 years, we'll be back with fucking Doomsday. Now I have a reason to live 2 more fucking years. I'm gonna see RDJ playing Dr. Doom. That's gonna be astounding. Anyway,
I was blown away when I saw that. When you must have been going crazy as much as I
fucking screamed backstage, and the folks who work here, they've known me because I'm here over the years. They're always very sweet. Like I'm the last guy on Saturday nights, so they're always very sweet. Like, we love seeing you, but like hurry the fuck up. We want to go home. So they're absolutely fucking wonderful. I was surrounded by them backstage, and when that happened, because they were building it up, going like, we need a great actor, the greatest actor, and I'd seen all the people who were on the panel backstage already. So I saw like Fantastic Four before they went up and stuff, and I didn't see anybody. Like I saw a parade of Dr. Dooms as they brought them all backstage, and I was like, holy shit, they're gonna announce fucking like one of the Avengers movies. Dr. Doom, this is crazy, but I did not expect they were gonna announce the actor and shit. So as I was watching it, I thought it was just gonna be them going like, and Dr. Doom's the villain. And then as they start doing the build-up, I was like, well wait, who the fuck was back here? And I didn't see anybody that could be of the caliber they're talking about. And when he took off that fucking mask, I was like, oh! Just cummed so hard. Yeah, cover those ears, sorry.
So I try to have my son watch Clerks, and
it's black and white.
He loved the black and white.
It's okay.
But here's the thing. We got to the point where the clown goes behind the wall, the door, and then he's wearing fishnet stockings, and he was like, what's that all about? And I was like, I don't know, maybe we should ask Kevin. But then, we're going to be in the movie, right? We got all the way to when you guys show up, and Jason goes, motherfucking fuck. And my wife's like, no, we can't watch it anymore. So that's as far as we got. But, what movies would you suggest for Nate to see at his age? I mean, with like, he doesn't mind violence and stuff like that, so like, would Red State be okay?
Oh God, my movies? Yeah. I was gonna say, you gotta see Endgame. Of my stuff, the most user-friendly I feel, how old are you? 10. Oh my God, I was cursing the blue streak. Ask your dad about what all that meant. I would say Mallrats is approachable for a 10-year-old. It's probably the least filthy of all the stuff I've ever done. Clerks is rather frank and dirty. Chasing Amy's kind of grown up. Dogma is also a pretty good watch. I mean, and of course, if you want to help me out, because nobody saw it, Yoga Hosers is what it's But don't show him Tusk until he's 40. That makes me so happy that you watch the movies with your kid, and that's like how I got started. Me and my dad watching movies together. Be careful, you may be raising a filmmaker right there. Give it up for Mike.